love to introduce and welcome everybody to our panel as we discuss and talk a little bit more about what happened in the Uprising and what's going on now. Before we get into this panel, I definitely want to take the time to plug in the Charlotte Mecklenburg Council of Elders social media pages. Be sure to like and follow them on social media at Mecklenburg Council of Elders, and be sure to subscribe to their YouTube channel, which you are currently watching this video on. And definitely want to take the time to, do y'all want to each introduce yourselves, or how? I'm going to pass the mic around to introduce you to each of the panelists, starting with you.
Good morning, and thank you guys for being with us this morning. My name is April Benson. I am a member and also the coordinator for volunteers for Mecklenburg Council of Elders, as well as an assistant administrator. My name is April Benson, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Great morning. My name is Betty Marlin. I'm a parent-child clinical nurse specialist and a sexual assault nurse examiner. I've been with the Council of Elders since this precious lady started it almost 5 years ago now. We also work with the offenders mediation in the courthouse. Thank you for joining us. Be blessed. Maria.
Good morning. My name is Maria Macon, and I'm the founder and executive director of Mecklenburg Council of Elders, the primary owner of Polish Inc., a business consulting and technical writing organization for nonprofit organization. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, I'm Sylvia Austin, working with the MEN organization and also Council of Elders.
Hello, I'm Melvin Austin. I work with the Mecklenburg Council of Elders and also the president of the MEN group. Thank you.
I'm A.W. Burgess, Mecklenburg County of Elders. I represent I represent Family Mankind. I'm the National Executive Director. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Camille Steffens, and I represent the nonprofit, my nonprofit, which I'm the founder of, called Locked Out Love. I am also a member of the Council of Elders.
Good morning. My name is Chevelle Jackson, and I'm a member of the community and a volunteer for Locked Out Elders. Thank you.
I'm going to actually see if I can run this to Brother Norman.
Hello, my name is Brother Norman. I'm local director for the Charlotte Area Peacekeepers and a member of the community.
Thank you all again for joining us. I'm Jasmine. I'm a community organizer, and for some reason, I still call myself a retired activist. I know I'm not, especially with what's been going on lately. But I will say one of the things I strongly remember in September of 2016, was being out in the streets right after CMPD killed Keith Lamont Scott. I remember being able to, seeing all the people in the streets, and it got to a point where we started being able to push the cops back because there was so many people angry, so many people hurt. And keep in mind, this is 2016. And the energy of that crowd, it was my motivation to keep doing this work. It took the second night when we had that same energy, the same crowds, honestly a lot more people at this point, but it was also more cops as well, which made it a little bit more challenging. And the cops had their ammunition, their tear gas, their rubber bullets. That second night, we saw another man get murdered in the streets. I say by the cops. The cops might say by another person who is still in jail. But that energy was real for me, and it's real for us again here in Charlotte. We came back to another uprising, and I guess we want to kind of weigh the pros and the cons of what's going on. One of my biggest things that I'm upset with, especially as things unfolded this year, or this past few weeks rather, Charlotte decided to uprise again in wake of George Floyd. I wasn't too fond of the direction it went in this first go around. They decided to protest and loot on the west side of Charlotte. Like I said, I call myself a retired organizer, but not retired enough to a point where I know not to protest or ride in the hood, not where I know my people are. So I can definitely say one of the things that happened with this new movement now, I'm still feeling the energy. I just think it needs to be guided in the right direction. And I'm definitely interested to see what you folks sitting on this panel are gonna say about the direction of where things are going. I don't know, I feel like it's time now. I think we are at a point where folks are fed up. They're ready to act. We have Corona to worry about, which is why half of us are in masks. So I'm just definitely interested to see where this conversation is gonna take us as we move forward into talking about the uprising. Does anyone want to lead us off?
Well, I had been protesting for a couple of days, and to see the anger and the frustration of what's going on, not just in our city, is among those who see the wrong. Our city does have to get better, and I want to see better. That's why I'm proud to be a part of Mecklenburg Council of Elders, because we try to make sure that we have a voice out there for those who need someone to fight for them. I'm a community engagement coordinator also for the African American Caucus, and it's like, you know, when you see wrong is being done, you want to be there. And that's why when I saw, just looking at the film of Mr. Floyd basically begging for his life, we all need to do better. We all need to make sure that we show up. And one thing about us as elders, we show up. We don't just sit and wait for somebody to save us. When you see other things that are going on, you want to make sure you have someone that's going to fight for you. And that's what we do. And that's why, again, I love being a part of Mecklenburg Council of Elders, because we got to come together and let them know this is not what we want to see in our communities. This is not what we want to see in our police departments. We support our police departments, yes. But when you know wrong is being done, you don't sit there and say nothing. You can't get too complacent in your job. Can't do that. If wrong is being done and you are a leader, especially for our leaders that are in office, those political leaders, again, you can't get comfortable in your job, because you can get voted out, just like what we need to do is vote that orange man out of office up in Washington. He needs to find him a new address. And for those that are not registered voters, please get out and vote. Your vote do count. That's a lie they've been telling people for years. And we need to stop just laying back and say, oh, I don't vote. Yes, you need to vote. Because without your vote, we can't win the electoral vote. And take some type of class to get you to understand so you can learn more about your city. I'm very passionate when it comes to my children, because I'm a mom and I have a son and he is black. And I cannot say I'm okay if something happened to my son.
My name is Brother Norman. I'm also a member of the Nation of Islam. We were heavily involved in the 2016 Uprising. Unfortunately, we have not engaged this one, per leader of the Honorable Minister Farrakhan, to stay sheltered in behind the corona and some other things that's going on. But what I see the lack of is lack of organization, lack of structure, lack of direction. The spirit is high, the desire for change is there, but the guidance, I think, is misled. Going back to that first night on Beatties Ford Road, I'd seen a lot of breakdowns. I actually think that, personally, that the community was pushed up into that Beatties Ford LaSalle area and allowed to do what they were allowed to do, because that's 10 blocks from where they actually started at. They could have pushed them 2 blocks the other way and let them dissolve, where there would have been no damage to nothing. Right there in front of the water department, over to Brookshire. If they were going to tear gas them, they would have tear gas them, they would have dispersed, and everything would have been over with. But they pushed them, they stopped at Oakline and pushed the crowd 10 blocks up to Beatties Ford and LaSalle corridor, which allowed for that mayhem to take place. So I think it's a lot going on that most people, if not familiar with tactics and procedures, are just not aware of?
Well, I'm Nurse Marlin. I get a call. I am on my way to the beach, and I hear, "Mama, are you okay?" And I said, "Yes, I'm at the Speedway." He said, "Mama, they're in front of your building, primary health care." We can't love our neighbor as ourselves. And that's where the healing starts, when we tell the truth and we love each other. One more quickie. I had a young man about 45 years old come in my building for a physical, ex-offender. And I was led to say, "Hi, precious. How can I help you today?" He stopped in his tracks. Big tears rolled down his face. He said, "Nobody has called me precious since my grandmother died." Have you called somebody precious today?
I'm Camille Steffens with Locked Out Love again. I guess, Jasmine, what you were talking about with the uprising and, obviously my belief is God used this incident to really make the community aware again of what's happening to our black and brown people. And so I've looked at it. I have not been out as an individual representing my nonprofit and myself and my community that I represent, which is my family, because of the looting. I don't want to be a part of that. I think there is ways and actions that you can do that will represent you in a way that change can happen. I don't want to be represented with the group of people that I see that are looting, because like you said, I do see those are their jobs. Making a statement, I understand we as a people have to make a statement, but what does that look like? And I happen to think that it does not have to look like you're breaking in or throwing bricks in stores or, causing havoc on other businesses. Because although, and what I heard somebody say, well, those businesses are not owned by brown people. They're owned by white people as well. But also your brown people work in those businesses. And so I'm thinking you're making a change, so you think, but you're also causing havoc on your family, because that's the same place where your mom works, your sister works, brother, cousin, somebody that is making a living for themselves. And because of those negative actions, as far as what I see, then you're causing a major impact on your family, which is not the way that I see change needs to happen. So, and some might say, that's crazy, don't make sense, you need to be out there and support. I'm in support, of course, of all of us, our brown people receiving justice, the same as you find somebody who's lighter complected as well. And I don't know why God is allowing that. And I say God because that's my belief. Nothing happens without God allowing it. But I just think it needs to be a different way. And like you said, with the organization needs to be different than what I've seen as well.
I would just like to say the pros that I'm seeing is the fact that we now see Generation Z that are basically saying we're not going to tolerate this for our generations coming forth. And it's amazing what our young children are teaching us as adults and how they're speaking up. And as a result of that, they're bringing their parents who never protested from the 60s, the 70s, 80s, however old they are. I find that to be amazing, that, we are learning from our babies, we're learning from our children. Another amazing thing to me is seeing the men who are stepping up, where men have been on the sideline or men have not been involved in anything. Just the fact that our mothers have been carrying us our entire lives by themselves. And so I'm just amazed to see the level of men of all ages who have never protested, who have never been involved in anything, come to the forefront to support moms. As you said, George called mom. He didn't call daddy. He didn't say mommy and daddy. He called mom. And so I hope that this, I'm a man of accountability, and I pray that men of all races, because that's what we're seeing now, seeing whites, seeing Asians, seeing any folks outside of the black race. The con is I still am boggled why when this has not been the first time that people have actually witnessed a black person being killed. We've seen it over and over and over again. And so that's the con, that why did it take to 2020 when we have hundreds of years of records of people being lynched, and again, police being there, police being a part of, of the lynching, coordinating the lynching, the court systems being part of the process where they turn their eye, where they have prejudiced jurors, where you have a jury that's not amongst your peers. So I just hope that, again, being a man of accountability, that we hold everyone accountable throughout this process, beyond this process, whether it's the system, whether it's individuals. I'm tired of seeing folks go to trial and walk out with unscathed. I'm tired of the George Zimmermans and folks of that nature. It is time to hold people accountable, and it's time to stay moving forward and keep our foot on the gas instead of taking it off. 2016, as you said, we protested. But again, like anything else, it fades in time. So that's my 2 cents.
I'm Melvin Austin with the men, also with Mecklenburg Council of Elders. I protested with the Scott situation in the past. What I've noticed was there is 3 different kind of protesters. You have the protesters, you have the rioters, and you have the agitators. We've seen busloads of people come in from out of state to cause confusion among us. And when I go to Batesville Road, I ask the people what happened. A lot of the people are saying these guys or people who started it, they don't even know who they are, meaning that they wasn't even from their neighborhood. But all it took is one person to incite something, and next thing you know, everybody is involved in it. Now, the protesters protest, the rioters starts confusion, and the agitators ignites all of those together. That's what we have seen of those things. What happened now is what we do with it. Before the bus situation with Rosa Parks, they protested for over a year. They did not give up. They were organized. In the process of it, the government, the one who brought them to the table, and that's how they started their boycott. We don't have that kind of leadership today right now. And we're looking for something, or they're looking for something to try to carry things on. And a lot of people asking, why are they so violent? I already told you the 3 situations. But when you got the pandemic, you've been cooped up for a number of days or months, and then now you're out on the street, now you have the frustration of it. These things have been going on concerning killings for years. I'm not saying all police officers are bad, but there are some bad ones. Here in Charlotte, Mecklenburg, they want to know who they are so they can weed them out. And because of the intimidation factor, we do not tell them the incidents that happen to us for them to lead us out. Now, when something happened at this magnitude, when we have video that people can really see what's going on, and the length of that video that you can see Mr. Floyd giving up the ghost, and you can see the intention of the man having his knee on the guy's neck. And you can see these things. And if anybody in the world that saw the video and they believe there's nothing was wrong, you need to look inside yourself and find out what are you doing? What is your morals? And we talk about God a lot, all man is self-created equal in God's image. If Scott and Floyd was created in God's image, and the officer was created in God's image, why do you treat your fellow man that way? That's something that we really have to ask ourselves. We really do. And then we go back even further and find out that the laws and stuff, they really truly need to be changed because they were set aside for one particular group to get away with things. We already found out that police officer or the chief of police cannot fire an officer because of the union, and how the union can mask that person's employment history so he can get a job somewhere else, and they vouch for him. These information is already coming out. We always talk about, hey, your information that you have in your household, keep it in your house. That's private information. But we ask for you to bring it out so that we can learn from it. Because your problem that you have, somebody else has the same problem. Now, how do we address those problems without knowing what those problems are?
I have mixed emotions about the whole thing because I've lived long enough and in various places to where this is not new. So my mixed emotions are, what is all the uprising about, first of all? Simply because this has happened over and over again. We uprise, we picket, we march, we sing, we pray, and nothing changes. So when I received the calls the first time, I received about 4 or 5 calls asking was I coming out to the riots. And I said no. I said an emphatic no, and people that know me probably know what kind of no I said. But I said no, I'm not going. And then they went, and they were all younger people wanting to know why. And I said, been there, done that. 60s, 70s, 80s, and now here we are, 2020, talking the same garbage. And what happens? And the only thing that I see happens is that there are organizations that don't look like us, get money to sort of supposedly solve this problem. They don't look like us, but they get money to help us. And when we apply or try to get money to help us, we're denied. So I'm saying, what's going to change? It has to be something else. I do not believe that going in any community, whether it's Beatties Ford Road or in Ballantyne, and tearing up anything is an answer. Because once I tear up and burn up, I'm tearing up and burning up in my community. Now where do I go shop? And then when it's time to rebuild, the city says, well, we've got to raise your taxes, folks, because y'all tore all your stuff down. Now we got to build it up again. Or you have to go 6 miles or 8 miles or 15 miles to get to shop because now you've created a food desert. So this does not make sense. And I appreciate being able to have this panel because I believe that the listening and viewing public needs to be aware because we have young folk. I heard Brother Norman say, Muhammad say that they're the structure. There needs to be structure, and somebody needs to know that. There is another way. Burning, looting, even marching is not the way because the people that make decisions know we're going to let you march for today, tomorrow, maybe this entire week. And when you finish marching, you go back home and nothing changes, not even your feelings about your fellow man. So I believe that there needs to be some strategic planning. Getting involved, yes. I believe you get involved by planning, by developing some strategic alliances and doing things that will cause things to happen and things to change. I'm pleased with the members of Mecklenburg Council of Elders because as a community, social, and criminal justice organization, that's the whole idea, changing the system. Because if we know our history, this system was not created for us anyway. And when you take the Race Matters juvenile justice classes, I learned that not only have we been bamboozled, but our counterparts, our best friends, have been bamboozled too. Because not only were we lied to, they were lied to also. And I'd like to end by saying that I have a very good friend that is a Polish friend, and we work together with Park and Recreation. And he told me about why he was so angry with his parents. Because his parents growing up told him that black folk had tails. And this is what he grew up thinking because he grew up in a community that had no black folk. So when he got to college and had a black roommate After a year with this roommate, he asked the roommate, man, we've been friends all this time. When are you going to show me your tail? Well, the black guy who was his roommate beat the devil out of him. And after he got beat up, he realized that his parents had lied to him. He was very angry, so he said to himself, if my parents lied to me about this, what else did they lie to me about? So he changed his majors in school and decided to major in African American history and African American studies. He has a PhD in African American studies. But I appreciated him telling that to me, because that was the first understanding that I had that I wasn't the only person that had been lied to. You weren't the only people that had been lied to. We all have been bamboozled. So that means that there needs to be strategic planning with all of us to change a system that was not intended for us in the first place. And then that system gets to a point where it's misinterpreted because it's left to be interpreted by whoever's looking at it. So I just wanted to share that I'm very thankful to be here. I hope the listening audience hears and understand that there's another something that needs to happen. And I'm so grateful for the people that are around this table. And I'll release the mic. I won't drop it, but I'll release it.
I think they want.
She hasn't spoken.
Hi, my name is Chevelle Jackson. I had mixed emotions about how our young people were handling the situation. I like to think that, I want to always be right and do things correctly, and I want our children to do things correctly. So when I was looking at the television and I saw the looting and the buildings being burned, I had mixed emotions about it. And the reason why I had mixed emotion about it, because I've said to myself, we have protests silently, we have protests without violence, and no one listened. No changes have been made. And I'm like, this is the first time I saw the world wake up. When our children started looting, I totally disagree with the looting. But when they started burning down the buildings and destroying buildings that these big corporations own, that's when we got the attention of America. And so I'm like, I said to my mother, if that's what it took to bring about the change and to wake America up, okay, it's a start. And it's a bad start. It shouldn't have gotten to that point where our children had to go to that extent. But if it woke America up, okay. So now what do we do? At this point, let's go to the table and let's start talking about it and bringing about resolution. Let me say one more thing, because I am a mother of a black young man. When I saw George, first, every time I see the picture of the police officer with his hands in his pocket and how comfortable he was, it made me feel like that was a norm for him, because he was too comfortable with his position no matter what was going on. And that made me feel like that was my black son down there. It could have been any of us or our black children. So that bothered me more than anything, the comfort that the officer felt in what he was doing.
I have one other thing too, because we work with expungements and certificate of relief, and we know, I don't know what the stats are as far as the arrests. Does anybody on the panel know how many brown people have been arrested as a result of the protests? Nobody?
I don't know the full number. I know we've been bailing folks out.
So we know there is a number. So my point is, I just wonder how many of those individuals, those charges, of course, whatever they charge them with, are going to stick. Because those people, we're now going to see on our expungement team. And so when you look at the brown people versus the white people, how many of those need expungements? And then how many will even come to us? So that's something that I also thought about as being part of our mission of what we do as a Council of Elders.
Also being in the streets with our mentoring program that we have, we see the youth on a daily basis or weekly basis. Right now, the streets are talking. That's it. They're talking, and they're talking loud. But sometimes, once again, they still do not know the direction. So when they get frustrated, and nobody really listening, like you said, this is the outcome. And also all it takes is the perfect scenario or opportunity for them to do things.
Here's where I have a problem with when it comes to officers who have basically murdered a lot of our young black men and even some of our older men. They can go on and get another job in another precinct or be on another force. But when our men get out of prison, they can't find a job nowhere. But they can go and apply for another job and they can get it without a problem. But a lot of times when you go apply for a job, they look at your background and say, no, they don't fit the description, or their background is not clean enough for them to work with this particular company. That needs to change. If you have done something, especially when you have taken a life and you are an officer, because they want to kind of take you out of that precinct and move you out west somewhere where don't nobody know, that's not right. Because our records are state to state, just like your license. If you have pending charges on your driver's license, you cannot go to another state and get a license until you pay those charges for speeding or what have you. That's not fair. And white folks been getting away with that for years. They can go anywhere and get another job, especially officers can go anywhere and get another job working on the police force, and they know they have murdered or have done other things to have them, I guess you can say, not so much as terminated, but they move them to other places. That needs to stop. And for our friends that are Caucasian, if you know and you've seen things that your counterparts or your family, whomever, that is wrong, say something. Don't just continue allow it to happen because you feel like you don't want to rock the boat, or as long as it's not over here in my area. I can love my people all day long. But when you know things are bad and things are wrong, because a lot of times even the spouses of these officers, they get comfortable in their lifestyle. I'm used to getting certain things or doing certain things. And so you're okay with your husband, because I know it's hard. But wrong is wrong. And you get comfortable in that lifestyle. And the reason why I mentioned that quite a few times is because that's what you do. First of all, you knew your husband was racist when you met him. And that's not you. But you are okay with it because, long as he's loving you and your family is doing okay, you'll sit there in that. So please, if it's not right, say it's not right. And those that are going out, because they're just gonna move them somewhere else. That's just the bottom line. They're gonna do that. And these people can go and get jobs elsewhere. I don't want what we're saying today to just be something that people hear. You have to live it. You have to live it every day. See, what white people don't go through, we go through it every day. When my son got pulled over, the first thing I did was got in my car to make sure that he was okay. And this is when he really first started driving. And I remember I told Chief Putney, I said, you know what? I can't be like some moms and say, well, I'll forgive him, it's okay. No, it's not okay with the Queen of April. I'm not gonna just let it go. You took something valuable from me. My nephews, people that I highly respect, but my son is my son. And you're not going to go back to your family and walk in your house and pick up little Johnny. And my son, I got to bury him. Praise God it hadn't happened, but I'm just saying. And you just going to go back home? Baby, I love you, but what about my family and other people's families? that have lost their loved ones. So we got to think about that. Hold officers accountable and do not send them elsewhere to work.
Thank you. You know, one of the things, April, that just happened, I saw you rise up in your anger, and I understand black rage. I understand, I've come to understand why people do some of the things they do. However, what I just learned in, let's say, the last 3 days, we've been watching a lot of civil rights and I watch a lot of movies with court movies and legal movies and law movies. And the one thing I learned night before last was, and I hear you saying white people, what I learned in the Race Matters class is that there are no white people. There are no black people. What is happening is white was a term for power. It was never meant as a term to describe somebody. And then as we describe somebody, then we may want to think that every somebody that looks like me or looks like them is responsible for their actions. So we can't, I've learned in conversations, and it may not sound right among some groups, but I've learned that there aren't any white folk. There aren't any black folk. White is a term for power. So I think maybe if we begin to say that those that are in power, those that have that power, because that's what we're saying when we talk about white folk, or when we talk about black folk, and we talk about those people that have no power or less power. So let's get it right, because when we throw it out there, our young people don't know. They have we're not talking about our history and our heritage, so they have no place to put that stuff, and so they begin to think, oh, it's your fault. When I think that, and particularly in my generation, and I know in Beth's generation, we grew up recognizing that change has to happen. And we're at a place now where all these years we have begun to talk about that change. But we have to talk about real change. Because my concern is, what happens if black folks get in power? Then we're going to be talking about those black folks won't let me do so-and-so. So we've got to get away from, please, that black and white thing and put it where it is. Those with power, those that have less power, and I'm depending on Jasmine to tell me who's first, second, because I didn't see who raised their hand. But I want us to get to a place where we can, and this is a cliche, where we can do what Martin Luther King said his dream was, that we can be judged not by what we see each other do on a daily basis, but on the content of our character. Our character is what makes us do this or do that. So the character of the people, that the police officers, needs to be questioned when they're hired. Their implicit bias needs to be dug into to see where they are. Go to their house and find out how they were raised. These police officers were little kids at some point that learned something from somebody else that was older than them. So we need to look at that and hold that accountable and get them some mental health help. Who's first?
I would like to say something before I pass it right quick. Maria, I want to thank you for working with organizations that are already established. And she does work with the court system, with the community, Black Lives Matter. That we need to hold on to that and build that. We also need to show up at the courthouse. When these policemen are being called up, this policeman should have been charged with first-degree murder. You cannot stand and for 8 minutes and 46 seconds and other people saying you need to let up, we need to change this, we need to turn him over, and it not happen. As a nurse, let me tell you what happened. Number one, his blood vessels were probably broke because Dr. Fields said blood was coming out of his nose. Number two, when you press on the carotid, you should never do this. Police officers should take karate in training so that they use it the right way. That carotid was pressed, that blood supply was cut off. He probably had a stroke. If he had lived, he would have been a vegetable probably. The other thing, it wasn't just his breathing. Now, I was concerned that his spine was broken. When you watch the young man, and if you really watch that closely, his neck was giving way. He should be charged with first-degree murder. Yes. No, and my daddy would say, just take him out and shoot him, and just save the system a lot of money, you know.
Exactly.
My dad was president of the school board in integration. When the principal came from the black school, she said, Mr. Marlin, please don't make our children go to your school. They'll make fun of them. We've got to stop that. What happened was they bused the black children to the white school, but they didn't bus the white children to the black school, did they? So that's got to change. Showing up at the courthouse has got to change. Working with the mayor. When we get a call to go and dispel riots, I started praying before I ever hit the car. That's where we need to start. We need to start going to the citizens training. The sheriff's citizens academy, the police citizens academy. You will learn a lot. That's what you need to do instead of sitting home and fussing. Show up, grow up, and shut up.
Thank you. But, excuse me. It sounds like what a lot of us are saying is accountability needs, people and systems need to be held accountable on every level, from the family to the jobs to the systems that govern all of us. No one seems to be held accountable, even dealing with the uprisings. I've seen in a couple cases where people were going to do some destruction and somebody that was protesting with them checked them. When we're out there, we have to remember that we live here. Some of these people don't. When they finish doing what they're doing, they're going back to where they from. So we have to hold everybody accountable. And if we're going to be out there, we need to have a structure of accountability. That's one of the key factors I think is missing, and which allows so much mayhem to take place, the lack of accountability. But not just that, accountability on all levels, starting at home.
Thanks, Brother Norman. You hit it right on the head. But also the question is, whose accountability or whose standard are we looking at? I studied Wilmington, 1898, after the juvenile justice class, when the Democratic Party took over the Republican Party, busted up the Fusion Party here in North Carolina. That's part of our history. They wouldn't even know about what happened. But at the same time, they went in and started changing the laws to affect those ones who was in power. And those is what we don't get. So when you're saying accountability, hey, they following the law. Point simple, they following the law. The law is written. If we don't know those laws and how to change those laws back or put them in a perspective of everybody, it is our fault. Because yes, we do be armchair players on the field. Yes, we don't do the things that we're supposed to be doing to have real effective change here in America. I don't worry too much about the national level. I worry about the local, because the local affects my life on a daily basis all day long. And you look at the city councils that we have today, I'm a native of Charlotte. There's no natural born citizen of Mecklenburg County on the council. If it is, I missed it. They have their ideals coming from somewhere else to implant here. So those ideals changes depending where they come from. And so that changes our perspective of how we was raised up, period. Now, because of the redistricting, we have people in the rural dictating how the urban people supposed to live. Hey, it's our fault because we don't do our part. Okay, now I'm in that boat too. It took me to get the age of 50 or so to be more active because I see the big picture now. That's all I'm saying. And also, when you took that class, you realize that white people didn't come white all at the same time. So it took a while for them to become white. And the thing kept changing. Because in order to be considered a superior citizen, all you had to do was go to the church. But when you apply for those things, and they find out who you are and what you do, they went against their own laws and started rewriting some more. The laws and stuff that is written in these courts is very important. And if you want to affect real change, you have to get in there to change these laws.
There's still lynching laws on the books.
Yes, it is. Still lynching laws on the books. In some neighborhoods itself, white people don't even supposed to be in. But the federal level oversides the local level, that's what happens. Look at Myers Park. There's no black people supposed to be living in Myers Park based on their bylaws. That is true, and it's effective. Okay? But because of federal law trumps state law, they're able to get there. But it's still only a small amount.
So one of the things that may need to happen, and I really have to look to our intelligent millennial youth, they need our guidance, the people sitting around this table. They need our guidance in helping. They have the energy, they have the strength, and the youth, and the education. So now what they don't have is our wisdom. They don't have our wisdom. So one of the things that we need to do, those of us that know, is to talk about how our laws change. How do you change a system? You never tear down a building by throwing pebbles at it. You have to go on the inside, from what I've learned from demolition, to tear down a building. So now we have to look at the law. We need to start learning that you can write a petition or just a note to your elected official and say, this is what I think needs to happen, and force them to work on that idea and have it become a bill and lobby so it can be passed in Raleigh and become a law. So yes, you can change the law, but you can't change the law tearing down your grocery stores, tearing down your restaurant, burning up your house, setting yourself on fire. You're not going to change anything. You're just going to be, I heard my dad then, and I won't say that, but you'll just be another black dead person or another black hungry person and another homeless situation set up. We need to work strategically together to change the laws, particularly those laws that are not for us. I think, are we running out of time?
Yeah. 4 minutes.
No offense, but as one of the younger people at the table, I definitely wanted to say, to start, I often place blame on people like my parents or baby boomers, if you will, because I felt like they did get complacent. And just like you said, we've been fighting this since the 60s, since the 70s, since the 80s. Here I am, a young 20-something-year-old person talking about I'm a retired organizer, and y'all been in this game since the 60s, and I'm tired of it. So I can only imagine what you all are feeling. I just hate how complacent we all have gotten after the 60s, and I'm saying we like I've been here. But I hate, and I don't want to put this blame on you all, but I hate that it happened. However, because I did recognize that, I am at the feet of the Mecklenburg Council of Elders, getting that guidance and then pushing it back on my younger counterparts. But I also wanted to say, because I do have that knowledge or that awareness, I appreciate y'all saying that they're good cops, but me as a young person looking at my history, there could never be a such thing as a good cop when that system wasn't meant for people like me in the first place. As far as I'm concerned, cops are slave catchers. So in my opinion, we might have some good humans who wear the uniform, but as long as that system is still in place, there will never be a such thing as a good cop to me. I definitely just wanted to make that clear as we're having this conversation, because I do understand my history and I do understand where I'm at in this time. I wanted to make that clear of my awareness. But again, I definitely feel like the guidance is missing. We do need more younger people at the table learning at least about our rights so we can go in from the inside and break it down. I know myself personally, I'm a huge advocate for nonpartisan political advocacy. So I understand, again, tearing the systems down from the inside. We do have to know what's going on, especially locally on our ballots, because like you said, it affects us on a daily basis. People fail to realize that your DA is a person that can decide whether or not this officer is going to jail for killing this other black man in the streets. So when I break it down and understand the ballot to that point, and not even just the ballot, like I said, understanding what the cop system is, understanding, working the ballots from the inside out, but also understanding the people and the places. We need to learn our neighbors. We need to have these difficult and uncomfortable conversations with our Caucasian counterparts. We don't necessarily need to have them with our Caucasian counterparts, but those who are aware need to be having these conversations. As my homegirl like to say, we like to tell white people to get their cousins. So we're at that point where they're starting to get their cousins and they're asking us like, yo, how can I get my cousin? But more importantly, when we do have these conversations and we can come together and we start to bring the younger folks into the fold to a point where they're listening, they're creating a system for our own future, I think that's when we'll start to see that change. Unfortunately, it is taking the flames and the riots to get it there. But I think we need to use the lights from the fire to kind of, I guess I'm thinking like I'm an air trafficker person, like trying to direct traffic, but maybe we go ahead to those flames with the traffic cones and just start pointing them in the direction of Know Your Right session, or to folks like Roy Hatcher, so we can at least be aware of our own self-defenses. I guess we're going to take a break at this point. I wanted to make sure, do we have any other remarks that felt all right?
I think I want to say too about our Black Town Hall meetings. I guess, Maria, you're going to elaborate on that as well, but that is part of, she gave me I can't. So the Black Town Hall meetings, we have scheduled about 6 or 7, I think, in the communities around Charlotte, and we have already completed 4 of them. And so with that 4, and we encourage those of you who are listening and watching as well to please take note. Please keep up with us and subscribe to our channel as well, because a lot of information will go out on there. Also, our Facebook Lives, of those of you who are aware of us and know us, make sure that you tune in and you receive the information. So in those Black Town Hall meetings, there is no one allowed except for brown people. All right, and so there's no political people, there's no police officers, there is nobody of no media. So no politicians, nobody of any of those titles are allowed. And so what we do is come together and we have a discussion like we're doing now, and we're able to hear exactly what's going on in the communities, what the concerns are in the communities from those who live in that particular community. So we've done one in the Hidden Valley community. We've been on the west side. We've done Clanton Park, and where was the other one? Betty Ray Center as well, and in here, duh. And so in here as well. And so we have a couple of more. And so we also, when you come in, there's boards that you can put sticky notes on to tell whether or not you have, for instance, Major, what we're talking about, if you find your community police are going against your people in the community, or targeting the young black guys or young black girls or whatever it is, or if there is, what was the problem? Drugs. The other thing was prostitution. We had homelessness. What was it? Gentrification, domestic violence, so different topics. And so even if there is a topic that we don't have and you would like to talk about in your community, we will implement that as well. And so what we're going to do is gather all the information from the communities and provide resources at the end of our gathering. What do you call it? What else are we calling it? At the end of the 7th. So we're going to gather that information and compile it and provide resources for the community as well, so you'll know how to begin that change, what that change looks like, and what steps that you need to take. So please make sure you subscribe to us. Make sure you get in touch with our organizations or individually as well to become a part of that conversation, and look out for us to come to a community near you. And so even if we're not in that community for whatever reason you can't make it, you are also welcome to join another Black Town Hall meeting.
Can you all, with the Black Town Hall meetings, a lot of times people don't know about it. People don't know about Know Your Rights. And when I'm talking to people and telling them about it, they're like, well, you know, how can we find out about this? So what can you do to publicize it more, market that what you're doing more?
One of the things we're asking our listening audience to do is to subscribe. If you subscribe on YouTube, every time we upload, every time we do a program, you would be notified by YouTube about what we're doing. The other thing is it was intentional that the Blacks Only Town Hall meeting not be so promoted. And so it's not on Facebook yet, and by you being here, you become a part of the method that we use. We use a calling post to let people know. We definitely let the list of people that have come to us for criminal record expungement, we definitely let them know. At this point, it's 3,200 people. And not all come to the Blacks Only Town Hall meeting because some are not African American. That was interesting, and it came about from people like Beth, and we have other people that are in a position that could be in a position of power to be a part of developing the structure for the Blacks Only Town Hall meeting. And the non-blacks are the ones that said it should be black only, because there are things we need to talk about in our households and in our communities that we don't need the outside influence.
Get yourself right first.
Right, we need to get ourselves, there are conversations that happen. When we were on Tuckasegee, conversation came out that surprised even us, and that was a conversation about incest. So we need to have those conversations in-house. And that's basically what the Blacks Only Town Hall meetings are about, is in-house conversation with each other. I think Jasmine said it right when she said we don't even know our neighbors. We need to talk to our neighbors. We don't talk to each other. So it gives us an opportunity to talk. At the end of the 7 town hall meetings that we plan, we will create, like Camille said, a document that we will distribute to everyone. And this document will give you an idea of the conversations in black households, in black communities, so that we can begin to forge together a black agenda. Because we are marching to the tune of some other drummer. And that's why it doesn't feel right, or we get out of tune, or we get arrested, because we're marching to your drummer. And how about, according to the Constitution, black people should not be arrested by the police. Go check that out in your Constitution, because we weren't considered those that were worthy or supposed to be arrested. So we're not even supposed to be arrested. So the police officer doesn't even know what should happen to us because they're not taught the Constitution. And we've asked that question of police officers. And later on in the program, you'll get a chance to meet the new police chief that will be able to talk to and answer some of those questions too. What are we going to do about that? Why are you arresting us anyway? We're not a part of what your Constitution says should be. So therefore, we don't fit the police law, so they're trying to make something fit that doesn't fit. And what do they say? Get in where you fit in? We don't fit in, so why are we in there? It's interesting. So that's how, your being a part of this panel is how you first get connected. Others just contact us. Contact Mecklenburg Council of Elders. We're listed now even on Google. We're on Google. But you want to go to www.mecklenburgcoe.org. Do it, www.mecklenburgcoe, COE for Council of Elders.org. And then you can also go to our website to see a lot of the information that's happening now. I do want to mention one other little commercial thing is we want to give a shout out to Final Cut Multimedia, because Final Cut Multimedia are one of those behind the scene things. So you can utilize the behind the scene resources in order to get some of the things out and known that you know, and that's what we use. So we're very thankful to our sponsors who Jasmine have brought to everyone's attention. Please stay tuned, because later on, what's coming up is Know Your Rights from the lens of the Mecklenburg County Assistant Public Defenders. And just to say a word about that, they came about because they were tired of having stacks and stacks and stacks of cases, and most of the cases were African American young men between the ages of 18 and 35. And so they said something has to happen, and that's why the whole Know Your Rights came about through an attorney that was an assistant public defender named Toussaint Romaine. So from that effort 5 years ago, we are now at the place where Know Your Rights is a program and a presented program, which will be coming up next. Thank you all so much. Finally.
Okay, I guess I'll close. I really would like to say that I'm really touched by the support that everyone has given George. And it really touched me more because 25 years ago, I had a little brother, 17, 2 months before his 18th birthday. George riding in the car with a friend. Cop stopped at a red light. Cop jumps out, run in front of his car, trying to detain him for some unknown reason. Long story short, he shoots my brother with his hands up through the car and kill him. That was my first experience with riots and protesting and all of that, St. Petersburg, Florida. So when I say I'm really emotional about George and how this man just really chilled on his neck with no remorse, and when you look at his face, the demon in his face with no remorse, and it took me back that I really had to breathe. I really had to breathe, because if you never been through that experience, you never lost a loved one through that experience, it makes you humble. I raised 4 young men. Couple of experiences, one experience that terrified me. They came home from college, rivalry game, Harding in West Charlotte. You know they want to go to the game. Racially profiled. They was asked to leave. They're leaving. One of the good old boys decided they wasn't leaving fast enough. So he goes and they arrest my children. I'm not even 100 feet away from them at Philip O'Berry working. My co-partner get the call, tells me, I'm running over there, my kids in the paddy wagon. My kids was at Liberty College, Christian College. They was well taught, well respected. the resource officer at Hardin knows me very well, to allow your good old boys to do this to my young men is a touching thing. So when I say I feel and I understand the protests, I'm with you in my heart. I support you in my heart. I don't accept that you tearing up your own city. I don't accept that you're allowing this person to come over and you see them tearing up your city and you not confront them and you don't even know them. I don't like that. And I would love for our people, like they're doing all around the world, bold young women and men, address it. Stop them, videotape them. Take the brick out of their hand. Make the change. Because they don't care nothing about you. They don't care nothing about you. So make that change. You see wrong, correct wrong. That's me. I raised a lot of kids, foster parents, godmommies. I raised a lot of kids. You do wrong, you get chastised. You see wrong, correct wrong. I have zero tolerance for you not doing the right thing at every given time. And I'm so glad God allowed me to speak, and I'm humble, and I'm going to pass the mic.
I just want to say one thing concerning the incident that happened in Minnesota. The lead officer had 19 years experience, I believe, of the force. Everybody around him was newbies. So the systematic trend is that he is training them exactly what to do to keep everything going on. And if you can't see that systematic thing going on, something is wrong with you. Something's wrong with you. Closing out.
Well, once again, we'd like to thank you as an organization of the Mecklenburg Council of Elders, and also our individual organizations as well, along with our community member. Thank you again for watching this segment as well. Please, as we said, subscribe to the Mecklenburg Council of Elders. We'll